draft.
All right. Hold on. Lost my place. I had to refresh it. There we go. All right, so let's talk about the NFC East, and let's start with the Philadelphia Eagles. When you're good and you win, it's a pattern, right? You start to build, you bring guys in, you sign long-term contracts. You got to go through some growing pains. You get the gel. You win for a couple of years. Contracts begin expiring. Those stud players got a lot of attention when you're winning games, and suddenly everybody wants them. The price goes up, and then the bleeding starts. And the Eagles certainly appear to be going through that last phase.
Yeah, and they've been able to at least stop a little bit of the bleeding, but I mean, they lost a lot of talent. Now, luckily, that Eagles roster was filled with talent on both sides of the ball, so there's still a decent amount of talent there. And again, they were able to bring guys back like Fletcher Cox coming back on a 1-year deal. They're bringing back James Bradbury for 3 years. Jason Kelsey decided to not retire, and he's coming back for another year. So they were able to retain some guys. The giant killer, Boston Scott, you can't leave him out. So I think what they were able to do after losing so much talent, like it's not going to be the same Eagles in 2023 that we saw in 2022. Definitely not. Like the other names on the list of guys that they lost is still long, but I think they did a good job of retaining some of their top end talent. So I think going forward, like in the draft, the holes that you have to fill on the roster aren't as many. You don't have to go and give up draft picks trying to trade for guys and trying to do, what the Rams did or what the Bucks did, and completely overpay for guys. So I think they're doing it right. They've been doing it right for a couple of years, and it shows with how they've been able to build it.
Great points. And I've been critical of Nick Sirianni, and we've talked about this before, but I feel it's important to bring it up. What I don't like about Nick Sirianni is that I think he's arrogant, and not because there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. My concern is that he hasn't really proven himself yet, but he's going to get the chance now, right? I mean, you don't get much better than what you did last year. And they were good, but sometimes the stars align and things happen. Barry Switzer won a Super Bowl, and he had no business winning a fucking Super Bowl. But I'm interested to see what Sirianni does. They've got there's a lot of parts moving out. He's lost Shane Steichen on the offensive, running the offense. A lot of these players moving around. He's going to have to re-gel, remotivate. This will show whether I was going to say whether he has a right to be, arrogant or confident or whatever. It's just going to tell us a lot about how good of a coach he is, what he can do if he can maintain that level. And because I'm a coach's fan, even though I've been critical of Sirianni, I'm really curious to see what he does with this and if he can hold this together.
Yeah, and I'm a guy that's always been a Nick Sirianni guy. I've always liked him. So I have faith that he's going to be able to hold things together, especially because of some of the guys that I mentioned he's bringing back, like Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, some of these guys that have been there for a long time and are big pieces of the locker room and holding everybody together, holding everybody accountable. So I think what they built, they're just going to continue to build on it with Jalen Hurts continuing to get better every year. Like what they're going to do in 2023, I think it's like what the Chiefs have done. It's like they're going to separate themselves, assuming everybody can stay healthy. They're going to be able to separate themselves, I feel like, from the class of everybody else in the NFC.
Yeah, and that's very possible. And I want to be clear about what I'm talking about for those that haven't heard me talk about this before. Having great players is part of the equation. But it's the chemistry. The chemistry, I mean, if you have exceptional chemistry with mediocre players, you can win a lot of football games. If you have shitty chemistry with great players, you can lose a lot of football games. So that's kind of where I'm coming from for people who are paying attention, listening. That it'd be interesting. They've resigned a few guys, but they're bringing a lot of new guys. They got a new offensive coordinator, and we saw that in Indianapolis. I mean, a star-studded cast, maybe the most talented roster in the league, and it just something was wrong, and they couldn't figure out they just couldn't get it fixed. And that happens a lot of times. Just chemistry, it's just not going to work. So, just we're really excited to see. You and I both are excited to see what happens in Philadelphia. Maybe for different reasons, but we're both on the same page that we're watching closely and find it fascinating. I'm excited to see what happens.